Good morning, Digidestineds. My name is the Digital Dimension. Today, I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on the most recent Digimon TCG Banned List. Let's go. First, we have Mega Digimon Fusion. It's been completely banned. Alright, so you can't play any more copies in your deck. This card was completely busted and let you play around a core game mechanic. So this is why it was banned. Alright, it was too powerful, and then with the release of EX1, it was too easy to play because you had Tamers coming out, white Tamers, Analog Youth. Analog Youth is way too splashable, works in almost every single deck, which allows Mega Digimon Fusion to be played in almost every deck. And then it was ending games way too early, and that was through the use of Susanoo and Analog Youth. So in the hybrid decks, Susanoo was able to be brought out for 1, and he had security attack +2, and he let you delete any of your opponent's Digimon. So if they had a blocker out, it didn't matter. So it was just way too powerful of a combo. So I do agree with it going to 0, but I would have thought it would have been fine at 1. And this is because it going to 0 kind of kills the Lilithmon loop deck, and I don't like to see that, them completely killing a deck, but I do understand that in order to have a healthy format, this card had to go. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Moving on. Ice Wall being restricted to 1. I highly agree with this. Ice Wall was way too powerful of a card. So it may forcing your opponent to give you 2 memory whenever they attacked. It was too much of a stall card, and it was way too cheap. If it had costed more, if it costed probably 3, it would have been fine, and I don't even know if it would have seen play at 3. But it doesn't. It costs 1, right? So it's way too cheap to play. It stalls out games, and if you can just consecutively go turn after turn after turn, plus playing Ice Wall and stalling out your opponent while setting up your own board, it was like way too good. And then it being splashable, we see in a lot of decks that a lot of non-blue decks that they are splashing Ice Wall by playing those blue Tamers. So it was way too good, and it will enable all blue decks going forward to just stall out the games, and it creates a unfun play environment. I do agree with it getting limited to 1. And its security effect, I didn't even touch that, of just gaining 2 memory, way too powerful. We see that on Hammer Spark, but Hammer Spark isn't nearly as powerful of a main ability as this card. And then also moving into the next format of BT7, Blue Hybrid with Tommy is going to be an incredibly strong deck. So to go 2 formats in a row where Blue just dominates, and Ice Wall being a core card in Blue, it's just way too good. So I agree with it going to 1. At 1, I don't see it being too big of a problem. It'll still definitely be played, but it won't be too much of a problem just to stall for 1 turn. Alright, moving on. We have Reinforcing Memory Boost being restricted to 1. I love this. Security Control was a deck I don't think Bandai planned on actually being a deck, and also in BT7, Yellow Hybrid becomes very, very powerful. So hurting Reinforced Memory Boost makes a lot of sense. It just does too much, right? So you being able to look at 2 cards, placing 1 in security and then drawing the other, it let you set up your security how you want to set it up, and then those security effects get played for free when your opponent attacks into them. It was just way too good for what it did. And then on top of that, having the delay gain 3 memory, even though it does cost 6, which is a lot of decks just don't care, because the benefit of it is worth way more than 6 memory. So limiting it to 1, I do agree with. I could even see this going to 0 and being fine. Next we have Savior Huckmon. So Savior Huckmon, I love the Jessamon deck, but Savior Huckmon was a problem because just like all the other cards, it just does too much. So it being able to play a Sistermon and then allowing your Jessamon to unsuspend itself when Jessamon is going to have multiple security checks and be quite beefy, so it can swing over most Digimon in the security, it does too much and enables too much of an OTK deck. I'm not saying OTK decks are okay, but they need to have more setup for them to be like fair to play against, if that makes sense. Um, so Savior Huck just this one card being like the linchpin of everything and allowing this deck to thrive. It needed to go to one, and it also nobody wants to play any other red deck because Jessamon exists. If you go 3 or 4 formats in a row where nobody wants to play any other red deck besides Jessamon because Jessamon is just that good, that warrants something being hit in the deck. And I think Savior Huck going to one is fair, and I am really excited. I think Jessamon is still going to be a decent deck, and I love to see what people do to innovate to move forward in the format. I do still expect to see Jessamon at top tables, even with Savior to one. Next is Eisemann. So me being a purple player, I especially don't like Eisemann getting hit. I was excited to play this deck in the future, but I do understand why it got hit. So it created way too much value for what it was. It being able to be played for free using a game mechanic that purple spams the heck out of, which is just discarding. So it was way too easy to be played. It caused too much advantage, and the condition for you playing this card was incredibly easy for the deck to meet. So I completely understand why it got restricted. I still see purple decks playing this at 1, and then scatter mode at 4, because these two cards are still extremely strong, even though Eisemann is restricted to 1. What I would like to have seen them do with it is just limit it to 2. At 2, I don't think you would see it enough in the deck and draw enough for it to be broken, but it would still be extremely playable. So that's what I would like them to do. But I do understand why they limited it. And then green. All right, Argomon and Hidden Potential Discovered are still restricted, and right now green is struggling. Green doesn't really have a place in the meta. Yeah, there's like some OTK decks, but they're not extremely good and extremely consistent. But I do understand why these cards have to remain restricted. They are just too good. Letting it's kind of the same as Mega Digimon Fusion. Just free Digivolution is so powerful, and just lets you ramp so much and end out and close out games so quickly that these cards I don't think ever will come back to 1. And they have just a giant design flaw in them being not restrictive enough, and it makes future card design hard to do if these are left in the format. So I do agree with these staying to 1. Moving on. So my predictions for the future and where I see the meta going is tier 1 for BT7. I still see Gabubond, Blue Hybrid, and Yellow Hybrid still being at tier 1, but they're not at like the tier 0 status that they would be if they had some of their cards not restricted. So I still think they're really, really good decks, just not as oppressive as they would be otherwise. Tier 2, you still have all your contenders that you had from BT6. Jessamon, Security Control, Three Musketeers, Agumon, they're still all incredibly strong decks, and they get bumped up a little bit in power just because things like Ice Wall and Reinforced Memory Boost are gone. And then Rogue, everything else. I enjoy the Digimon game because everything has a chance to win. Each deck, there's some decks that are more powerful, but every deck seems to have its own gimmicks, and its own gimmicks are quite good. And a lot of decks have potential to win, so I put just everything kind of in Rogue. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, peace out.